Hello, my name is Nanamdi.
I'm Emerson.
I'm Tiara.
Let's talk about The Last of Us.
You played The Last of Us games, and if you have, do you think the show did the games justice?
Yes, so I've played the first game and the first game many times, and I've played the second game a few times.
So I have experience with the game. Like I watched like the playthrough like a few years ago.
I know everything that happens in the first game, and I know the plot beats of the second game. I don't know all the details, but I didn't know about it before I watched the show.
I feel like a lot of times, like when you're doing an adaptation of something, people don't do it correctly because they take away what made like that original thing good to begin with.
I think it's really important to make it about the entire world and not just Ellie and Joel.
And at the same time, they try and stick too closely to it. Like you have to take like certain, liberties, certain ways to make it different while also keeping it the same. I think the show did like a really good job of keeping like the core themes of the game, the core characters, story elements, all that stuff, while also making it something different.
In the game, Frank kills himself because he hates Bill, and in the show, they have a very beautiful love story. And I think those changes were good. Like I think that was the correct choice for the show to make those plot changes, to keep something new for the people that have already played the game, to like see a new story unfold in the show. So I know that there's a lot of like extra story added because the game is obviously a lot of just like shooting things, and you can't make that into a show. But I agree with the changes they made that I know of. So yeah.
Sticking with Joel and Ellie, Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, what did you think of them and their performances?
I think they were amazing. I'm expecting Emmy after Emmy after Emmy.
100%. 100%. Pedro Pascal did like a really good job as Joel.
Yes, I'm a big Bella Ramsey fan, also a big Pedro Pascal fan. I think, like, if you go back and play the games, like, the amount of, like, Joel energy that Pedro Pascal embodies, just, like, the annoyed with Ellie, little, like, southern man, like, dad figure, he's so accurate for the role. Like, he even looks like him a lot, which I think is perfect.
When he wasn't speaking, he just really embodied the character of Joel and, like, his protective nature, but also that part of him that, like, didn't want to open up as much and care about Ellie because of what happened to his daughter.
They both showed their relationship and like the characters so well. And I think it was really weird that people were complaining about Bella Ramsey being casted as Ellie because she didn't look like Ellie.
I actually think that Bella Ramsey looks a lot like Ashley Johnson, who voiced and did the face acting for Ellie.
I would rather someone who embodies the character really, really well than someone that just looks like the character but doesn't know how to truly add to the character. So I don't think looking like the character is that important. This is not models, this is a show. So
Bella Ramsey just sounded so much like Ellie, did a lot of their acting just like the way Ellie did. Like, it was basically like it was just taken straight from the game and brought to the TV. It was so cool.
I remember watching that scene where Joel is basically confiding into Tommy and he's, sobbing. From what I've heard, in the game, there's not much of that. Like, Joel doesn't get as emotional in the game. Do you think that addition to the character detracts from the story or from the character, or do you think it adds to it? And if so, in what way?
with Joel and like with Sarah's death, like at the very beginning of the apocalypse, we assume that it's still affecting him, but we don't exactly like see it directly like in the game because obviously they're focused on other stuff.
Think a lot about, like, in shows, whenever I see a man cry, there's this trope called boys don't cry, where they don't let manly men, usually if a guy cries in a show, it's either a child or a gay man. So seeing like this manly man who's like a protector and he's strong and he's like a classic southern man, be able to like cry on screen about something like that you should cry about, like the loss of a child and how that affects you years in the future, is something that almost any human on this earth would cry about. And so to have that depth to his character, to show that he can get emotional and he does feel this deeply, I think that was an important thing to add.
Video games and like TV shows are a whole different medium, so the way you tell the stories are gonna be different. In the video game, like you kind of a lot of times focus more on like the gameplay aspects of it because it's a video game, it wants to keep you engaged. But with a TV show, you're able to like touch on certain things in a much more drawn out way or a much more explicit way because you have the time and the budget to do that.
With him having panic attacks or with him being at Tommy's thing and seeing a girl and thinking, oh my gosh, that's Sarah. Like, I think it really added to it and showed like how much it's still affecting him 20 years later and how much it affects his decisions.
In the game, he only ever really cried once, and that's when his daughter died.
And so like when he's with Tommy and trying to convince him to like take Ellie off of his hands, I think it's really like having him have flashbacks to Sarah feeling like I couldn't save her and Ellie's becoming really, really important to me and I don't know if I can save her either.
In the game, Bill and Frank are hinted at being a thing, whereas in the show they are explicitly a couple. What do you think of that aspect of the show?
I loved this. That's the episode I think I cried on the most, honestly.
A lot of the things that are direct in the show are really hinted towards in the game, so people are able to say, oh no, Bill wasn't gay, or oh no, this didn't happen. But like with the show, they're like, no, he is.
In the game, it's a very sad story, and it's almost played off as a joke where you hear Bill say like, you shouldn't care about people because I cared about this guy once, and it ended badly. And then you just read this note where Frank's like, oh, Bill, I'm so sick of you and sick of you always nagging me all the time, so I got out of there, and then when I realized I couldn't get out, I killed myself. So it's played off kind of like a joke in the game.
They really added to the theme of the show of just love and what you would do for someone you love and how someone you love can change you or how it can heal you. Like with Joel, he didn't care about living after Sarah died, and Ellie added new purpose into his life.
It was a really great love story. Like, it was really well done, and it fleshed out a character that in the game was kind of more one-dimensional. In a TV show, like, you can see them like more as a fully fledged person and character. I thought that was really cool.
I support Bill and Frank being a couple in the show and having that beautiful love story, and they die together, and it's very emotional, and I cried. So I'm very happy about that.
Since this is a post-apocalyptic show, a common trope is the portrayal of events and characters. Do you think that the characters in The Last of Us and the events they find themselves in, do you think they were portrayed black and white, or do you think there was a moral ambiguity to it all?
Definitely like a moral ambiguity to it with most of the characters, like with Joel and with Kathleen. Like, although I didn't like Kathleen, I understood her because I was like, that was her brother that like was killed. Like, if my brother was killed, I might do the same thing. You never know.
A lot of times you tell a story and it's like very clear on who the good guy is and who the bad guy is, but I always am a fan of stories when it's not quite as clear or clear cut. And The Last of Us, like, you can arguably say that every character in there is a bad guy in some way, shape, or form, and you can also say that arguably most of the characters could be looked at as good guys. It's all about perspective.
It wants to put you in that situation of what would you do? Are you going to be the person that's going to do whatever it takes to survive? Because in that apocalyptic world, you do whatever it takes to survive, and that's what's Joel done.
I think Joel knew in his heart and in his mind if Ellie was awake and he asked her, she would say, I want to die. But, he doesn't feel like Kathleen said, there's no justice in that. Like, he doesn't get anything from that. So though it was kind of selfish, you understand why he did it.
And that was hard for Joel, kind of had to become a selfish person after he lost Sarah because he lost the person he was living for, and so he only had to live for himself at that point.
Because when you're in a post-apocalyptic world, there's not really as much of a sense as, oh yeah, this is right, you would never do something like this. More about, okay, what are you going to do to survive and protect the ones you love?
David, I think, was a pretty black and white character, kind of. Well, like, his community, like, the way that they eat people, that's kind of understandable-ish. I would never do it personally, but, like, in an apocalypse where you're left with limited resources, there's not much you can do. But as far as him being an abuser, that's not anything that's redeemable, like, post-apocalyptic or not. And I like how, like, in the show they added that he was a school teacher and, like, a pastor, showing that he's worked and saying that I've worked with kids Ellie's age before. That was sickening.
With The Last of Us being as big of a franchise and as grand of a story as it is, what do you think the storytellers are arguing for in regards to the show?
Like what the message they want to send out is?
Message, thematics, character arcs, anything. What do you think it's arguing for?
I think it's arguing for putting yourself in other people's shoes or considering other people's points of view.
I think the two biggest themes I've taken away from the franchise are the idea of, like, found family and learning how to love, being okay with loving other people and caring for other people.
I think it's just trying to argue for love and compassion, because I think like a lot of the issues in post-apocalyptic worlds and in general, even with Last of Us, like a lot of the issues aren't caused by the zombies or the infected. Like sure, like they come into play, but like a lot of issues are because of people.
There's these big arcs where you see characters kind of becoming something that they thought was evil originally, like Ellie going on a vengeance arc after, they fought against these people that were looking for revenge.
That's not your situation. You don't know what's happened to them, or you don't know what they've had to do to survive. So I think it's just really important to think like this is a literal apocalypse. You don't know like what to do, so you start doing things you might not have done beforehand, or things you might have looked down upon beforehand, because this is an entirely new world that you're living in.
You can't just give up. You have to keep going. There's always something to keep fighting for, always. And I like how that's like a big message, explicitly and also more subtly in both games. And I hope the second season of the show touches on that second theme a lot more, because I think it's very important.
All right, thank you for tuning in to Coog TV Reviews.
We'll see you next time.
And be sure to show up for a film festival that we have happening here at the Student Center South from 7 to 10 p.m. on Thursday.
Bye.